Welcome into the Sports Objective and our NCD1 baseball preview. We appreciate everyone tuning in whenever and however you're watching or listening, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. The show can also be heard pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, including but not limited to Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Follow us on social media on Twitter and TikTok at the Sports OBJ and on Instagram at the Sports Objective. Like and follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let us hear from you on each one of those platforms. It's hard to believe, but we're less than a month away from the start of the college baseball season. We've begun our Division I baseball preview for the state of North Carolina with a lot of Big South flavor, as we've heard from first-year head coach Joey Hammond of High Point, plus Scott Friedholm of UNCA and Justin Hare of Campbell. And today we're talking to the newest member of the Big South Conference, and that is, of course, North Carolina A&T. So welcome in their longtime head coach, Ben Hall. Coach, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Looking forward to the talk and some baseball discussion.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time as always. And so I mentioned that transition to the Big South Conference from the MEAC, and talk about what that's meant for your baseball program.
Yeah, I mean, it's an important, fun, exciting transition. I mean, for us, I speak individually just for baseball. It's a big deal, and it's a big challenge. It's obviously a step up just in depth of the conference and competition, and it's going to require continued movement and improvement in the program and consistency that we've been striving for the last few years within the program, even in MEAC play. So it just new opportunities. With change comes opportunity. That's what I tell our guys all the time, especially this year's group, and no different for our program as a whole with what's ahead of us now as a member of the Big South.
Yeah, like you say, tremendous league, and Campbell's obviously done very well in recent seasons, playing in multiple regional championships down at East Carolina as well as Mississippi State a season ago, taking what went on to be the national champions to the brink there in that game 6 of that regional, and just talked to Coach Hare a few minutes ago. But as you take a look at it, talk about some of the returners you have on this ball club, and tell us some of those proven commodities you have.
Yeah, well, this is definitely a year where we've got more newcomers than we have returners. That is definitely going to be the case for us. I mean, last year we had numerous, what everybody wanted to call COVID seniors, who were kind of playing a swan song season for themselves, for them. And so, we had to do a lot of work at the end of the spring and in the summer to get the bodies and the ability and the people in here, but returners wise, I mean, really I'd say the most impactful ones are left-handed pitcher Peyton Weinbarger has been here, a long time, has had some high points in his career so far. This year was really good towards the end of the season last year, pitching out of the bullpen, and he's a tough lefty, deceptive, and he's an important piece because he's one of the few pitchers that we are returning that actually has some significant experience. Sophomore pitcher Xavier Meacham kind of got thrust into a role he wasn't really probably ready for as a freshman last year due to injury. But got a really good arm and is going to pitch in the bullpen and factor significantly there. Just learning and growing up quickly because just need him to throw more strikes this year. He'll have a really special season. And then on the position player side, we returned both Cam Brantley, who had a good first year last year and is an on-base machine, and a player that I think is poised to have a big year. He was Xavier Bussey's another North Carolina guy that transferred to us from junior college and really never got off the starting blocks last year. Was injured, sick, injured, kind of all year, and never really got going and never really could get his ability level out there. And he's obviously healthy this year and has been outstanding. And so he's, a returner that, most people aren't going to see in the stat books, but is definitely had a big fall and is definitely poised for a big year. So really, it's going to be it's a handful. It's more about new, than it is returners. And as important as they are, the majority of the success of this team obviously is going to come from a large group of new faces and new people.
You talk about the influx of newcomers. So if you would just tell us a little bit as far as, and I apologize if you already did this, but I didn't catch a number. And then also, what's the ratio of high school versus transfer?
Yeah. So we brought 21 new players in this year. And I think it was, 8 freshmen to 12 transfers, something like that, somewhere in that range, give or take, one off the top of my head. And so, really, we'll have a whole new infield, all new bodies in the infield, third base, short, second base, first base, all new catching. We got 2 new catchers in the program. Actually really excited about. Both are going to be really, really high level players. And then, added a bat from the transfer opportunities. A junior college player out of Pitt Community College is a really high level player for them, had an outstanding year last year. And then we brought in a large group of freshman pitchers. So growing those guys up, I think, 7 of the 8 incoming freshmen were pitchers. And but they all have ability, and really excited about the long-term future of those guys we're going to bring here. And they're going to have to, do some things for us this year. They're going to have to grow up fast. And then, like I said, another handful of pitchers that were kind of either junior college or, portal, looking for another opportunity type guy. So,
not to get off on a tangent, but while we're on the topic of transfers, what have you noticed is still relatively early on? But you've always had transfers, but transfers in the past, depending on where they were transferring from, may potentially have to sit out. But just talk about the way the transfer portal, the way that's impacting things, and how you think you may be able to benefit from it there at North Carolina A&T.
Well, I think one thing that I think we all agreed on is that it's in some form we've, as coaches, you hear coaches saying it probably had to be done in some form, but there's always unintended consequences for any rule change that the NCAA comes up with. And I think the one thing that we saw this past year, and it actually helped us a little bit, but, is everything's getting pushed back super late. And so, you got these guys, you got an inordinate amount of transfers going into a forum, and they really only have about 2 months to figure out where they're going to go, and depending on the universities, like when your first day of school is, it might be less because, obviously at some point in the summer, each university shuts down their application portal. So, you really, later in the season, you have your end of the spring meetings, and all of a sudden a big, flush of, I guess, transfers who are looking for another opportunity just enter this forum. And now all of a sudden they've got about 6 weeks to go through the recruiting process and then figure out where they're going to go, and then come through on all the things you have to do to get into the next school. So it definitely, I would say was not a seamless transition, but I think you just hope that these kids think it through a little more when they decide to go in the transfer portal. I think a lot of kids that we came across, were in the portal with no clue what they were going to do. They just were in the portal. And it was kind of like it was the flavor of the month a little bit. There's something cool to do. And hopefully that's not the case going forward. But in the end, we're going to run a good program, treat our guys right, take care of them. And, and if guys are looking for opportunities at a new place to access the field, we definitely, are going to be there to take a look at it and see if it's a fit for us.
Yeah, that's something I've heard football, basketball, and now baseball coaches voice that concern, the flavor of the month, the way you put it, kind of being a fad. And a lot of these student athletes, they don't think about, what happens if I don't get picked up by someone. Not everybody, and there's not going to be but so many vacancies, and these programs are bringing
Yeah.
in, high school recruits as well. So it's definitely a serious problem. It seems, as far as young men and women being left in that portal. But back to this season, transitioning to the Big South. What are some of those things that you really think that you're going to need to see strides in order to make that jump?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just first and foremost, just overall consistency. I mean, I think that that the level of competition is obviously, I mean, it's higher, and that's not to knock down our competition in the MEAC, but it's a higher RPI league. The teams are playing tougher schedules, and they're really well coached. I mean, that was, and so, we as a coaching staff have got to prepare these guys the right way, and they've got to, step up their commitment level to building their game individually and then as a group. I mean, obviously, when it comes down to it, it's about pitching and defense and finding ways to be a consistent offensive team. But, being able to, I think we've pitched it really well the last few years. Last year was a little bit of an outlier for us in the way we've performed since we've been here. So, getting ourselves back on track on the mound, compared to where we've been in the past is a big step. And, continuing to just play the game that at a level that gives advantages to us and how we want to play the game. And, and I think that's an important part of being successful in a good league. You can't try to go do what everybody else is doing. You got to do, what you've identified that your group and your personnel is capable of doing, and then keep them committed to doing that at a high level. And for us, it's just about, putting pressure, having a high pressured offense, just being consistent defensively and throwing a ton of strikes. That's the big challenge for us, is being in the strike zone on a mound.
I know back in the fall you announced a couple of staff additions with Elliott McCummings and then Braden Gorham. If you would talk about the addition of those guys.
Been really happy with it. Those guys have it took a while to get them here, going through that process, during COVID and some of these different things definitely makes it hard to get it done. But, they both bring significant experience, and obviously Elliott spent a little bit of time in the Big South and has bounced around to a couple places and just had a really, really good recommendation group of people who are really high on him. And he's exceeded that since he's been here. And so, we're one of the top HBCUs in the country. And I think that our hiring and my ability to offer opportunity to minority coaches is something that, you take a high responsibility in. If I'm not going to do it, then, how can you expect other programs to do it? So, obviously they've got to be qualified and they've got to bring, high level ability and person to their job here. But both of them are going to do great things for us immediately and obviously long term. And so long as they just continue to do what they're doing. So both have been awesome. Braden had a really good career between App State and UNC Wilmington, and his dad's the local high school coach here at Dudley High School. So, he brings a really awesome, youthful, and then also very local feel to our program too.
Lastly, Coach, let's talk about the schedule you've assembled for this club. In terms of the non-conference, you start things off with the University of Dayton out of the Atlantic 10 coming to War Memorial.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big challenge that we tried to address this year was to get some home games. Good gosh, last year was tough. You almost just had to take the games you could find. And then all of a sudden you look up a couple weeks, you're not really thinking about it. You look up a couple weeks from the season, you're like, wait a second, we play like 35 road games out of however many, 50 something games we're playing, well over, 60% road. And so we were traveling a ton because we wanted to play and we didn't want to not play. So, getting ourselves the opportunity to play at home was important this year. But yeah, Dayton's they have had solid seasons and good program, and you're going to see northern teams in our area. We all see that every year, and those teams coming down to get some better weather, and so the opportunity to play at home, and then obviously transition. What I would always say, we try to schedule good competition and a tough schedule that is going to challenge our players, to be prepared if we can fortunate enough to get ourselves to the postseason.
Well, Coach, as always, we really appreciate the visit. Appreciate you carving some time out for us. As we know, we're just here about 4 weeks away, and it's hard to believe it's on us.
Yeah.
But really appreciate the time, and we look forward to having you back on down the road.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right, take care.